Welcome back to our new God's Love for the Unlovable and Gospel Rant series, our new format. We're calling it Vagabond Diaries. We're telling the gospel through stories, through parables. I think it's fun, through dramas. Today is going to be an interesting story called The Builder, an allegory of what Jesus came to do. Just trying to see it in a different lens, a different focus, so that things pop off the page that we maybe haven't seen. That's the power of storytelling. It sometimes gets beyond our defenses, underneath them, where, sometimes preaching from the pulpit or reading a book on theology just won't do. And so I've enjoyed telling stories in my trilogy, my fantasies for 10 to 16-year-old Christian children. It's award-winning now. I'm very grateful for that. But I've seen the power of it, how it's opening up people to new possibility of the gospel. And so that's what we're doing today. And we'll continue to do for a little bit of time. We're having a great deal of fun with it. Let's get into it. Welcome to God's Love for the Unlovable and Gospel Rant. The Builder. The ancient words on the mountain said, "Climb the mountain and live." This was the path to victory and eternity. Oh, there were other mountains, but our people knew that this was the only peak that claimed such a promise. My people lived at the base of the mountain. From the time I can remember, I was taught the rules of climbing. There were very specific guidelines. The technique was carefully prescribed. Our teacher had been to the mountain many times. He had suffered many falls. He was old now and beyond years of climbing. The falls had left many scars. Though he still climbed a little, he would never reach the top. Everyone knew that, but still in our village, he was still considered a great hero. He was one of the few that made it as far as the ridge of the skull. That made him a great man of influence as well. I used to wonder what the whole thing was about. As far as anyone knew, no one has made it beyond the skull, we call it for short. It was a 3,000-foot sheer cliff, not straight up, but projecting out over the climbers at an angle of 80 degrees or so. I've seen many pictures. No one knows of anyone who has made the climb or even close. But the instructions are very specific. Climb the mountain and live. And so, from early childhood, we are immersed in training and climbing techniques. We're taking on bunny slopes and climbing walls from age 5 on. I'm 20 now and will soon be expected to begin climbing the mountain like my father before me and his father before him. There is a cult of non-climbers, that's what we call them anyway. They've been around for as long as Grandpa remembers. They wear rocks from the mountain on a chain around their neck. It's ironic, really. Their founder came down the slopes of the mountain one day claiming that he had climbed the mountain. Not likely. He was not a climber at all. He was a worker, building things for the climbers. My grandpa wondered out loud once that he had probably never climbed a hill in his life. But apparently, many of the builders believed him. They would. Those people are looking for anything to get at the climbers. They probably have insecurity issues, being builders and all. Well, there was so much of a stink that the climbers went to interview this guy to check out his story. Grandpa knew some of the old climbers who were there that day. The guy had uncanny knowledge of the mountain for not having climbed it, but really nothing that couldn't be acquired through reading and studying climbers' diaries that are in every library. But then the guy went on about what was on the top of Skull Ridge. He spoke of the glorious view, the people who live up there who do not die at all. He spoke of the king of the mountain, the one who wrote the instructions on the base of the mountain. He was a great and loving king, he said, even called him Daddy. Well, that pretty much did it. It was enough to make fun of us climbers and have claimed to have gone where not even the best of climbers could go. But then to make up such a yarn, to besmirch the name of the author of the writings on the base of the mountain, that was too much. In a frenzy, partly in righteous anger and partly to stop the spread of this potentially dangerous social philosophy, they took him to the base of the mountain, directly under the sacred writings, and they each picked up stones and killed him. My grandpa, a great climber himself in his days, said that the builder was more dangerous dead than alive, and he wonders if they should have just let him rant and rave for a while longer and people would have seen him for what he was. We discussed the guy in one of my climbing classes, his movement, the Builders. They have a large following now. They claimed that the builder didn't really die, or maybe he died and came back to life. I don't remember the specifics, actually. I can still see my prof's face turning red as he told us about the supposed teachings of this guy, and his voice went up an octave when he said, "Danger!" He reportedly told the other builders that they don't have to climb the mountain. The builder said that he climbed the skull for them. Can you believe it? All they have to do is some airy-fairy thing of joining with him somehow, and it would be as if they climbed the skull when he climbed the skull. It's just not logical. I can't even really explain it because it makes no sense to me. It would be as if I took a climbing test for someone and they were given my A. It's just not kosher. The person didn't really earn the grade, right? Did they now? But believe me, it's no use trying logic on builders. They don't get logic. And even if this were logical, it is not logical that a builder would be the first person to have ever climbed a skull. This is comical. I mean, from my point of view, the movement is mainly attracting losers, people who can't really climb at all. It's a cop-out, really. It makes me mad. Why don't they stay to themselves? One of their strategies is to volunteer at climbing hospitals to prey on climbing failures. They help them out, they bring them food, they appear sincere at first, but suddenly they sneak in these very dangerous thoughts, you know? These climbers are vulnerable at the time. This is exactly what they want to hear. The bulk of the builders also climb. I'm using the term very loosely. They don't appear to seriously attempt to get to the top of the mountain. They're just out to have a good time. At least that's how it looks to us serious climbers. They don't see the importance or the urgency to get to the top. They say they are climbing because they want to. Well, that's a grand idealistic notion, isn't it? Wouldn't we all like to do it because we want to? But what about the days that we don't want to? What about the hours where we sacrifice our family and health to climb? It cheapens the whole task to see them having fun. This is serious and requires work. If we don't make it to the pinnacle, we're stuck here. We die here. We have to get to the top, and then we can live forever. At least that's what they tell me. The end. So here's some dialogue starters that I thought about. All right. What are some of the parallels that you notice between this allegory and the story of Jesus and his salvation? And second, what jumped off the page of the story to you? Pushback. If you like this Vagabond Diary, please like and subscribe and forward the link to a friend. We mean that. Check out our fantasy books, the Kingdom Quest trilogy, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. That's The Tale of the Unlikely Prince, The Storyteller's Tale, and The Garden Tale. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Kindle. Want more information? Check my author page, drbillsenyard.com. Check out my series for women's groups and spiritual formation called Dance Daughters of the Most High. It's a fun, informative, hopeful look at misunderstood women of the Old Testament. Check it out also, Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and drbillsenyard.com. All right? We'll see you next time. Take heart, child of God.